Hey, welcome back for another complex combo with your girl Sonia B. I am on here today because I decided to just start reading a book. I read various books, but this one drew my attention to it because the title of the book was "What You Do Is Who You Are." If you have subscribed to my channel some time ago, you know I did a video called "How You Do Anything is How You Do Everything." And this title stood out to me because it was something similar. And when I talked about how you do anything is how you do everything, it's about how you do the little things in life that paint a picture of how you'll handle the big things. This title, while seemed similar, the context was somewhat different. But as I was reading it, even though it pertains to business, I related it to relationships because that's what I talk about. The book, What You Do Is Who You Are, is by Andreessen Horowitz. I believe this is a gentleman who is an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. Didn't look too much into about the author just yet, but I wanted to share with you a little bit of what I read, some quotes that I read, and how I equated or related those things to relationships. So I was reading this book. The book is about business and making your business culture purposeful. It gave 4 big models on leadership and culture building. So how to build a positive workplace or organizational culture. The book is really, in a nutshell, about creating a business culture that weathers both good and bad times. But it was while I was reading this book and several passages that I'm going to share with you, I began to draw correlations between the business talk and relationships, because essentially business is about relationship building and sustaining those relationships. Those business relationships are working relationships. I often ask myself personally, why are relationships hard? I wish I had an answer for that. I probably have $1 million if I did. But truth be told, hard things are hard because there's no easy answer or recipe for them, right? They're hard because your emotions are constantly at odds with your logic. And they're hard because you don't know the answers. And honestly, if you were to ask someone for help to get you those answers, you feel like that's showing a sign of weakness. So I often read a lot, even if it doesn't pertain to relationships, things that, especially if it's business building, relationship building within business, I can relate that to relationships to make things a little easier. That makes sense? So one of the quotes, first thing I saw, especially because I have a son in the military, and I meant to ask him about this. There was a quote that was shared. If you see something below standard and you do nothing, then you've created a new standard. So in your relationships, do you settle for a substandard treatment? I think it's the same thing. And if you do settle for substandard treatment, do you say anything about it, or do you just leave well enough alone? I've been guilty of that. I've not said anything and I left well enough alone. But the problem with that is that I created a new standard of how to treat me. Therefore, I set the expectation for the other person that you can constantly treat me this way because I don't have a problem with it. Now, after some growth and development, I realized I have to say something. But, we do this in relationships, men and women, and we wonder why we constantly receive the same treatment, because you set that new standard for how that person can treat you. If you haven't said anything, if you haven't shared with the person that, what's going on in the relationship is making you feel a certain way, you're basically telling them that you're allowing this to continue to happen. You're setting a new standard. So another thing that I discovered in this book is without trust, communication breaks. And it said, here's why. In any human interaction that requires any amount of community, it's inversely proportional to the level of trust. Now, that's a lot of business speak, but without trust, you don't have communication. In your relationship, how is your communication? Do you withhold sharing things about yourself? Do you withhold just talking? to your partner because you don't fully trust them with your heart yet. So you're not sharing with them the things that make you seem vulnerable. You're not sharing with them matters of the heart. And if you don't have that trust, therefore no communication, do you really have a strong foundation for your relationship? How do you think your relationship will flourish without it? Some of the things that it made me think about. Another quote, and some of these are lengthy, but integrity, honesty, and decency are long-term cultural investments. Their purpose is not to make the quarter, beat a competitor, or attract a new employee. Their purpose is to create a better place to work and to make the company a better one to do business with in the long run. This value does not come for free. In the short run, it may cost you deals, people, and investors, which is why most companies cannot bring themselves to actually really enforce it. But as we'll see, the failure to enforce good conduct often brings modern companies to their knees. How does this relate to a relationship, you say? When you lack those core components of this quote, that's integrity, honesty, and decency in your relationship, the whole thing folds. The problem is that you don't realize, the problem in this is that when the problem person doesn't realize that there's a problem, it's a moot point. You're talking about how you feel that this person lacks integrity. You don't feel like there's honesty in the communication. You don't have decent treatment of each other. And you bring this to the other party. If they don't see that as a problem, what you're saying is a moot point to them. I'm still working on how you get that person to see what the problem is so you can work it out. But again, $1 million if I have an answer to that. And one of the last things that I looked at was to sell, and I'm not a seller of things, but to sell, you have to have the 4 C's. And those 4 C's are competence, confidence, courage, and conviction. So what does that mean to a relationship? I know a relationship is not a product, and you're not selling yourself to the other individual, but in essence, you really are. Because when you're having those conversations during the establishment about what you bring to the table, what the other person may bring to the table, what you're bringing to the table is on sale or on display for the consumer, the other person, right? Your potential mate knows, what's for sale because you've laid it all out. And he or she has laid it all out for you. The value of your product is on display, or you're selling yourself on how valuable this product is that you have and that you bring to the table. But you're setting, with conviction, you're telling that other person that what I bring to the table, this product, is not for the average consumer. Okay, it's not just for anybody. So to break it down in a relationship, you have to have competence. So when you're talking about what you bring to the table, you define what it is that you bring to the table. You can illustrate to your potential mate the value of those things that you bring to the table. And you're setting the expectation that they'll treat this product that you have on the table with care, with great care. You have confidence to even state your point of view. Here's what I bring and why. You got to be confident and you got to have confidence. Courage. If you can do those 2 things, if you can come to the table confidently and say, this is what I bring to the table and this is the value in said things, and you can be confident in your value, then that takes courage. So to have courage, you have to have confidence and confidence. Lastly, conviction. You said all this, you've put all your goods on the table for display, but to know that while you bring these things to the table, the conviction is you will not be undermined, you will not be undervalued, you will not be taken for granted. You flat out won't be played by the individual. So bringing to the table your wares, your items for display, what the value you place on those items, and letting that person know with conviction, confidence and conviction that you will not be played. These are my things that I bring to the table. If you don't bring those same things, or you can't enhance those things that I bring to the table, let's just cut our losses. I'm still reading the book, but I had to come on here and share, because when I saw that title again, what you do is who you are. If you come to a relationship half-assed, you are a half-assed person. If you are in a relationship and you lack those core values, you lack the integrity, you lack the honesty, you lack what is the word that I'm looking for? You just don't have the gas, the energy that it takes to put into a relationship, because a relationship is work. If you come in doing half-ass work, you've basically let that person know that I'm going to half-ass it. If you allow it to happen, this is what I'm going to do. So, how are you coming to your relationship? How are you in your relationships? Because what you do is who you are. If you constantly lie, you're a liar. If you constantly pacify your mate because you just don't want to hear his or her mouth, you're just a complacent person, kind of passive. If you constantly brush things under the carpet, you're someone who lacks the gas. You lack the energy to sustain a relationship. So think about it. What are you? And who are you in your relationship? That's all I have for today. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so by clicking subscribe below. If you have, you know I appreciate each and every one of you. Can't talk right now. Leave your comments below. Let's talk about this. What are you? And does it define who you are? Till next time.